Playoff positioning and franchise records in the balance in this divisional matchup between the Panthers and Saints.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome into this crossover edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Saints. We are your hosts, Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, myself, Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints, and we thank you very much for being here with us on this crossover Thursday edition of the show. We're going to be breaking down everything you need to know across this matchup in the second meeting of the season between the Panthers and the Saints. Why the quarterbacks are all the rage for both of these teams. We'll take a look at the run game and how it can factor in on both sides, and we'll kick everything off with the major implications that this matchup has in store with the biggest stories around both teams. We appreciate you very much, as always, whether it's your first time or your next time being here with us this time, making a short first listen and being an everydayer here on the shows, which are a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you for helping us get here, and of course, for making us or allowing us to bring you your team every day. Today's Crossover Thursday edition is brought to you by friends over at Prize Picks, where you can download the app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Julian, you and I were dead wrong about the last meeting between these two teams. Grateful to be back here with you to do it again for the second matchup. What are you looking at from the Panther side as the biggest story going into this one after what was a surprising result in the first matchup?
Well, it was back-to-back surprising results for Carolina because nobody, myself included, thought they were going to go to Green Bay and win that game. And after you beat the Packers, you would think that you're going to beat the one. Yeah, you think you're going to beat the one-win Saints, and well, they didn't do that. 17-7 was a pretty rough result, and there's a lot of criticism for Bryce Young after that game. Yeah. Heading into it this time around, it's funny because I was talking to our guy, Matt Moscona, up there in Baton Rouge on a Wednesday afternoon, and I was telling him last time we talked, I said all Carolina had to do was just show up to the game. And, well, the players agreed because Ike Ekwonu told us after the game that they did not have the attention to detail they needed throughout the week, meaning they took the Saints lightly. Now, Christian Roseboom, he told us on Monday, we don't take anybody lightly. I'm like, you sure about that? You sure about that? Because from the way y'all have talked since that game, at least after that game, you may not have said you took him lightly, but certainly the result of the game and the rhetoric coming out of that shows that you did. So really for me, the biggest storyline is obviously where they sit in the NFC South standings, tied with Tampa Bay. And we will know by Sunday whether this game has even increased importance, because if Atlanta beats Tampa somehow, all Carolina would need to do is win on Sunday and then win next Sunday at home against Tampa, and they would have the division signed, sealed, secured, and have two meaningless games to end off the season in 2025. So for me, I just want to see, can they handle success? Because when they beat Green Bay, they couldn't do it. And here they are in a similar situation, albeit they have a bye week sandwich in between the win against LA, where they shocked the NFL world again, and now a game against the Saints team that has shown that, hey, they may not be good, but there's enough veteran leadership on that team to where they're going to try to still play to the standard that was set there back when they had Sean Payton. Those guys have won a lot of games. They're not going to sit here and just allow Carolina or allow Tampa, as we saw on Sunday, to take advantage of them and win those games. So I want to see, as you're sitting here with your playoff fate in your hands, can you handle success, and can you go out there and take care of business against a team that already beat you and, quite frankly, embarrassed you 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, and look, it's an off week for the Carolina Panthers too, right? They've gone win, lose, win, lose, win, lose over the course of the next little bit. So the Saints need to try to take advantage a little bit of that kind of cadence there. But obviously, huge opportunity for the Carolina Panthers. You're welcome, say the New Orleans Saints, who went and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa last week.
But also, if you hadn't beat Carolina in the first place, they wouldn't have really needed that win. Would have been also very nice.
Why you got to bring up old stuff, man? Why you got to bring up old stuff?
Hey, thank you, New Orleans, for beating Tampa. But also, why did you have to beat the Panthers a couple weeks ago?
Well, I think a lot of Saints fans are going to be hoping that you're going to be asking that question again after this weekend, as the New Orleans Saints look to sweep the series series around the Carolina Panthers. What a big storyline that would be for New Orleans as they look to move ahead for manageable games, manageable to winnable games here to wrap up their season. And so for New Orleans, I think the biggest story on their side comes down to kind of twofold, right? Trying to finish the season as strong as you can, to heck with the draft position and all that kind of stuff. You're worried about building and creating a winning culture here in New Orleans. Here's an opportunity for you to do that. And one of the biggest reasons why they're even in that conversation right now is because of the great play they've gotten from quarterback Tyler Shough, the rookie, since he came in. The Saints have won 2 of their last 4 games. 50% is not great, but it's better than where the Saints have been over the course of the past couple of years. And with Tyler Shough, he's now 106 passing yards, Julian, and 2 passing touchdowns away from holding the rookie records for most rookie passing yards in a season and most rookie passing touchdowns in a season. No disrespect to the Carolina Panthers, but like both of those, especially the yards, 106 passing yards, you can kind of do accidentally if you wanted to. But both are in reach in this matchup against Carolina.
Yeah, and I got to apologize to Tyler Shough and his whole family, New Orleans Saints fans, I suppose, the city of New Orleans, because a couple weeks ago, I was like, yeah, Tyler Shough, I'm not really worried about that guy. He played well. He did. And he's honestly like that game on Sunday, I was watching it, the toughness that he showed. And it's not like the talent hasn't been there for Shough, because I follow his entire college career. He was committed back to Larry Fedora when he was at North Carolina back in like 2018.
Right.
So that tells you just, well, we know how old he is, but that tells you how long of a career that this guy had in college. But this was a guy who had Oregon, solid player, just wasn't there yet. Constantly got hurt at Texas Tech, and I'm sure you've told your fans all about this, your listeners all about this. For finally last year at Louisville, you got to see who the real Tyler Shough was. So I am happy for him, for a guy who went through a lot. I'm sure just not just physically, but mentally to get to this spot. Like, it's a cool thing to see him where he's at. But yeah, for Carolina, we'll see, because Jaycee Horn had a rough day a couple of weeks ago, and JC said, like, he said it was on him as one of the highest paid players on the team, one of the leaders on the team. He has to play better, and he also chalked it up to just 2 big plays: the Olave touchdown, and then there was one late in the game. I forget who it was. Those were the 2 really game plays that changed the game. So if you prevent that to where maybe one's a push off, the other one JC's falls down, if he doesn't fall down, maybe you don't lose that game. So certainly that will be an area to look at as far as trying to stop Shough from having another dynamic passing performance like he had the first time around against this team.
Yeah, we can pick up exactly here as we continue on with this crossover Thursday, brought to you by Prize Picks, because we can take a look at the matchups that can be kind of the biggest part of this game. So let's jump to that next as we continue to break all of this down. And I'm going to make Julian say more nice things about Tyler Shough before this episode is over than he was prepared to say. We're going to get to all that here as we continue on with this crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Saints. And today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks, the easiest and most fun way to play daily fantasy sports. The holiday season is here, and it's the best time to get in on all of the action, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes like the one that Carolina is trying to make right now, and much more. And you can get in on all of the action over at Prize Picks today. And it's super easy to do. All you got to do is pick 2 or more players, and all you're going to choose is more or less on their Prize Picks projections. You get those right, and you could walk away a big-time winner over at Prize Picks today. And with their early payout options now, you might actually be able to get an opportunity, if you start out hot, to cash out early before your lineup is even done. And with the stacks feature, you can roll things into additional, like multiple different more or less prize projections and all those other things for the same player as well. So all you got to do is download the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. You'll get $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, everybody, continuing on with this crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Saints and Locked On Panthers. Julian Council, Ross Jackson here, breaking it all down for you. Want to remind you about our Everydayer Club as well. You want Locked On Panthers ad-free. You want Locked On Saints ad-free. Click the link in our description or head over to lockedonpanthers.supercast.com or lockedonsaints.com shop.supercast.com and become a part of our Everydayer Club, where you can get all ad-free episodes and access to our members-only merch store, which I know a lot of people have been asking for. So go and check that out here today. All right, Julian, we were talking about some of the biggest matchups. We're already kind of rolling into it. Let's keep that conversation going over on the defensive side, because I assume that is probably one of your big pieces of this game, is matching up with the passing side of what New Orleans is. Or is there something else that kind of stands out for you on the Panthers defense?
Yeah, actually, what I'm looking at, I mean, I guess let's start defensively, because we get to some offensive things later on. Defensively, what I'm looking at, and my thought going to that game last time around was, can you find a way to get the rookie to make mistakes? And Shough didn't really put the ball in harm's way at all in that game. We have seen, though, recently, and this goes back to Jaycee Horn and this Panthers secondary, they found a way to get a ton of takeaways with interceptions. They had 3 Brock Purdy in that first half on Monday night a couple weeks ago. Last time out against the Rams, Matthew Stafford set an NFL record for 28 straight touchdown passes without an interception. Next drive, pick 6. So look, so they picked off Stafford 2 times. They got a fumble recovery later on, a strip sack there by Derrick Brown to end that game. So the last 2 games, Carolina has had 6 takeaways, and that is really key for a defense that has been, I think, overall, like, they've been markedly improved from where they were last year. It's not that hard to be when you were historically the worst scoring defense in the history of the National Football League. And I get
we've seen that here in New Orleans. We get it.
Right. And it's a 17-game season. I don't care. You were still dreadful. You gave up 3,000 yards rushing last year, but having guys like Derrick Brown and Jaycee Horn back, that helps, because your best players have to be your best players. So I want to see if they can get some takeaways, and if they can find a way to force Shough into some mistakes like they've been able to do with Matthew Stafford, who was the MVP favorite up until that moment, and with Brock Purdy, who had that issue even early on in the season when he had played for San Francisco. So can they be able to make that happen with a far less experienced quarterback in Tyler Shough?
Yeah, that's going to be big. The Saints have had a turnover in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive games, Julian, and 5 of those. Yes, that's right. And 5 of those games have been multi-turnover games as well. Not all of those are, of course, interceptions. Some of those go before Tyler Shough was the starter, all of that. So worth noting there. But turnovers and giveaways in particular have been a big part of the Saints story so far this season. They're going to have to absolutely be on the right side of that turnover margin. And so to keep with the Saints offense, Panthers defense side of the equation, I think a big part of that is going to be that conversation that we were just having about Jaycee Horn versus Saints wide receivers, but mostly when he's matched up with Chris Olave. Now, New Orleans has seen a nice boost from Devon Vele, who's become a bit more of a go-to option for them, particularly when attacking the middle of the field. I don't think that's going to change. I think he'll continue to be a big focus in the passing game as that chemistry continues to get built. But Chris Olave is your big play receiver. We saw that with the 62-yard touchdown down the right sideline, matched up against Jaycee Horn. Was it a push off? Did Jaycee Horn just fall down? I say stay on your feet, but that's just me. But when it comes down to a big touchdown like that, you need those in this Saints offense. You're looking for those big breakaway opportunities. And so I think, to me, that's going to be a big piece to this matchup in keeping the turnovers off the board, is Chris Olave and Tyler Shough being able to operate with the success that they operated the last time that these 2 teams met.
And I will say, to JC's credit, he didn't blame the officials at all.
No,
he said, "Yeah, sure,
he was
maybe." He's like, maybe it was a push off, but we know that's not getting called. Like, the Panthers have people who speak to refs, or at least the analytics team, who tell them this is what's getting called, this is not getting called. He just said flat out, I got to be better. And you appreciate that, because certainly maybe that was, I mean, looking from my vantage point in the press box, it kind of looked like maybe it was a push off, but also could see where it would get away with it. Either way, you got to make better plays. You got to be able to stay on your feet, as you mentioned. And if the player himself is saying that, that's the case. It's just the other one where he fell down, and then Juwan Johnson was open.
Juwan was open.
That was the killer for them in that game. So I expect that. And we didn't talk to JC on Wednesday. I'm sure he'll talk to us on Thursday. And I will ask him just if there is going to be extra juice for him. And he's in concussion protocol. So that's one thing to also bring up, he was limited on Wednesday, which is a walkthrough. So that's not going to be a day where they're going to be able to pass concussion protocol. It's him and Claude Sherlis, the backup linebacker. If Jaycee will be out there in pads on Thursday, that's the day we'll find out necessarily where he's at. And if things are good, he's able to clear protocol. Maybe he'll be available to us. I'm not really sure how that will go. But if he is, I certainly want to ask him just about if there's an extra motivation for him, knowing that this was a game where he blamed himself. He said he's the reason they lost a couple of weeks ago and going against Chris Olave, who has been fantastic. Obviously up in New Orleans, we're down in New Orleans from where I'm sitting. But, so like that will be obviously a really interesting matchup just to see how Jaycee responds from what happened a couple of weeks ago. That's barring that he's ready to play, but it looks like he's gonna be good to go.
Yeah, big time. I think looking over, continuing sort of this piece too, I have to highlight that Saints might not have Alvin Kamara this weekend. And so rookie Devin Neal, who has been impressive so far, but, still coming along as a part of this 2025 rookie draft class, which has been very important for New Orleans. But that is another big injury thing that we're watching here in New Orleans as well. What are you looking for when it comes to the Carolina Panthers offense up against New Orleans defense?
Yeah, it's going to be the run game. That was an area that the Saints took away as they said, hey, Bryce Young, can you beat us? And Bryce said, no, I can't. Not this Sunday. That led to an unsavory week. I'll just say up until he had the 448 yards passing against Atlanta that following Sunday. But Rico Dowdle had been the story heading into this game a couple of weeks ago as he helped them win that game in Green Bay. He had a couple of just monster performances against the Dolphins and also against the Cowboys. So he had taken over as that lead back. But against New Orleans, 18 attempts, 53 yards, 2.9 yards per carry. Carolina averaged 3.2 yards per carry in that game overall when you account Chuba Hubbard and Bryce Young's carries. Now, last time out, Carolina had Chuba and Rico both getting split carries. Rico getting 18, Chuba getting 17, a rotation that they had tried to utilize early on in the season when Chuba Hubbard came back after missing 2 games with a calf injury. It finally actually worked out to the way people had envisioned back in the spring. Now, Dave Canales brought this up on Wednesday, that a big issue that they had was blocking the second level of the Saints defense last time out. That's Mario Davis. That's Pete Warner. They got to get a hat on a hat. So that's going to be one of the areas that I certainly look at in this game is if they can have guys like Austin Corby, who's going to be starting at right guard this week. Cade Mays, who's missed the last couple games with an ankle injury. He'll be back out there at center. Damian Lewis, who's been really good in the run game. Can those guys find a way to get up the second level? Same thing with even who have the receivers as well. Tight ends. Can they block those really good linebackers from New Orleans and be able to actually have success in the run game, unlike they had a couple weeks ago? And invariably, can that open up then the pass game and they have the kind of balance that they want to have moving forward?
Yeah. The Saints have got to be ready to take away the run game again, but then be ready for an adjusted attack when it comes to Bryce Young. You're not going to get the same Bryce Young that you got a few weeks ago. You're going to get a much better one this time around. And so you have to be ready to defend that as well over on the back end of that with the defense. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at what it is that each of these teams has to do to get a win. Of course, our friends over at FanDuel have the Carolina Panthers favored coming here to New Orleans. What do they need to do to win and cover? What do the New Orleans Saints need to do to get an upset? We'll break all of it down here as we continue on with our crossover Thursday edition of Locked On Panthers and Locked On Saints. Today's crossover Thursday episode also brought to you by our friends over at Car Gurus. Buying a car is it's supposed to be an exciting experience. It's not supposed to be a confusing and scary experience. And that's where Car Gurus comes in. With them, you're going to be able to cut out all of the noise so that you can actually focus on getting the deals and the cars that you want. Over at cargurus.com, you can filter by everything: mileage, trim, features. That way you're only looking at the cars that you want, and you're not going to find a better deal than what you'll find over at Car Gurus. In-depth vehicle reviews there for you as well, and verified dealerships with upfront pricing that makes the whole thing feel a lot more transparent and a lot more stress-free as well. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships that are transparent and hassle-free for their buying experience and worth, and they've got over 4 million listings as well. So buy or sell your car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com. That's cargurus.com. Today's show also brought to you by friends over at ZocDoc. It's 2025, almost 2026. The days of waiting for something to become a full-blown emergency are over. You don't need to be worried about whether or not you need to walk that ankle injury off or that shoulder stiffness. Oh, it's just because I slept wrong on it. Go and get yourself taken care of. And our friends over at ZocDoc make it even easier for you so that you can make sure you're getting checked out when something just feels a little bit off. You can, it makes scheduling even easier. Real appointment times are listed and updated, including same day visits as well. ZocDoc is absolutely awesome. I've used it to schedule appointments before. This is something I genuinely use because I don't want to wait weeks to get help. So you can stop putting off all of your doctor's appointments today and get the care that you need by going to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, everybody, wrapping up this crossover Thursday edition with a look at what it is that each of these teams needs to do to get a win.
Yeah, well, we just talked about it before when looking at matchup. It's run the ball. They did not do that effectively a couple weeks ago. And Dave Canales even wanting to find balance, feeling like they found their identity by being a balanced team. And I would argue, aside from the game against the Rams, maybe the Cowboys game is the only time I've really truly felt like they were balanced in the passing game and the run game. But if he thinks they've gotten there, then who am I to argue with the head coach of the Carolina Panthers? But still, like, they want to run the ball. Like, that is something that's important to them. They didn't do that not against the 49ers when Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle got 9 carries combined. Then look at the last time they played 35. So I'm expecting them to try to get those guys 30-plus carries combined again. So they have to run the ball effectively. Also, you got to limit those big plays in the pass game that you gave up the last time around. And I think that's something that they certainly can do. As you look at it, we talk about maybe one's a push off, doesn't really matter because the Panthers are being told you're not going to get that call. And then one's just falling down. Like, it happens, but it can't happen if you want to be a playoff team. And then lastly, like, turnovers have been key for this team. Can you find a way to get the takeaways you've gotten over the last 2 games? We've had 6 takeaways defensively, and it's not just getting the takeaways. Can you cash those into points? A big reason why they lost the game to the Niners was those 3 interceptions in the first half on back-to-back drives. They only got 3 points. Like, that's not good enough to win games. Yeah. And then when he got an interception the first time around against Stafford in that game 2 Sundays ago, they didn't get any points off of that. They eventually got the pick 6, of course. So you got to find a way to get those takeaways, but also to cash those into touchdowns, not just field goals, but touchdowns. And that will give you an advantage to really be able to have maybe a calm, not stress-filled Sunday against the Saints team that I think will absolutely be game, just like they were a couple weeks ago up in Charlotte.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I think that turnovers are going to play a huge role in this one. And the good news for the Saints offense is that Carolina's pass rush, it
doesn't exist. I don't even know why you even said Panthers pass rush. What is that? Yeah,
I was going to say, not to give them more credit than they deserve by calling it a pass rush, but they are 32nd in the NFL with a 27.7 pressure percentage. And so you want to talk about, being comfortable and kind of stress-free. Hopefully that's what ends up happening for Tyler Shough in that backfield. And I think, Julian, if you give him time, he's going to find something. Or he has the ability now with his legs, which is where I think getting into kind of a key that I think the Saints need to go in on in terms of what they need to do to get a win. It's lean into Tyler Shough's playmaking ability and then challenge Bryce Young to beat you and be ready to match up. That's kind of it for me. Like, that's really what I'm looking for. And if the Saints do both of those things and find success in both of those things, then I think that, like, that's ball game in favor of New Orleans in this one. That's got to be the biggest key for me, is making this all about the quarterbacks while putting your quarterback in the best position where he should be comfortable, as long as the offensive line doesn't gift the Carolina Panthers a pass rush, right? If they can do that, then I think that puts them in position to get a win here.
Yeah, and Ejiro Evero has been willing to blitz. They're going to have to simulate some pressures on Sunday. And I think back to the game against the Rams, they did send a safety blitz. Lathan Ransom, who's been the impressive rookie out of Ohio State, he had a sack in that game. That was their only sack up until the final possession the Rams had in the fourth quarter, where Derek Brown had, quite possibly his best play as a Panther because, like, look, there has not been a lot of moments to point to throughout his career, dating back to when he came in as a rookie during 2020, to where it was a significant moment in the season. They just have not been in it. They have not been in the spot that they're now in, where if they went out, or if they just win their 2 games against Tampa, like, they win the division. They're hosting a home playoff game for the first time since the 2017 season and since January 2018, when you look at just the calendar year. So it would be really obviously important for them to get this win. If they don't get it, I'll be curious to see how they respond from that. It would obviously matter. I think whoever wins the South, and the way it's shaping up to be, they're going to be the 4 seed anyways. So while you don't want to lose to New Orleans, you don't want to lose to Seattle, as long as you beat Tampa, like, that's all that really matters. But still, this is a team that wants to really build forward momentum into the playoffs. And just think, if you win this game, you beat Tampa twice, you beat Seattle, you win 5 straight with one of those wins, beat 2 of them being against the Seahawks and the Rams. Like, there's gonna be a lot of just talk about how hot the Panthers would be. Now, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, of course, but I'm just thinking about scenarios here as far as the way this team is right now. I forget what your question was as I went off on that. But
no. I just left it up for after you know, talking about, like, it's all about the quarterbacks in this one.
Yeah, and to that point too, Bryce was bad in this game. Had 2 interceptions, one of them just a really bad throw. Alontae Taylor, who has been able to make some plays against the Panthers over the last 2 years. I know he blitzed on the same blitz 3 times week 1 last year, and they couldn't pick it up for whatever reason. It was ridiculous. And I was just like, oh, you're getting out coached in your first game. It happens, but come on, man. So, yeah, Bryce has a point to prove. I brought up Jaycee Horn, and he was honest about how he let the team down. He's got to be better. And Bryce was ticked off after that game. We don't typically see him look like that. No, throughout his rookie year, every time they lost, he looked like depressed. He was mad after what happened a couple of weeks ago. And, well, Atlanta, you saw 448 yards. So I'm just very curious to see how Bryce is going to respond as well against the Saints, who dared him to beat him. And he said, actually, I don't want to dare. Truth instead. And the truth was he couldn't do it.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, Alontae Taylor, 5 games against Carolina, and specifically against Bryce Young, Julian, 3 sacks, 1 interception, 5 pressures, 8 passes defended, allowed just 64.7% completion percentage, 8.9 yards per reception, and has only allowed 1 touchdown against Carolina. So you want to talk about a guy, a big matchup, Alontae Taylor versus Bryce Young, man.
Yeah, here's a bold prediction right now. I'm just going to say this. If they send Alontae Taylor on a corner blitz and he gets home, the Panthers will lose. Because what that will tell me, what that's going to tell me is that Dave Canales is getting out schemed. He's getting out coached. Because that is something that, with the sample size you just pointed out, you cannot let that happen. You have to evaluate the tape and have your team coordinated, because you're coordinating offense. You're just not calling plays. You're making sure that they're in the right position, that they know what to do, how to pick up blitzes, and that oftentimes has been an issue here. So if I see one Alontae Taylor corner blitz that gets home, they're losing this game because your coach is getting out schemed. I'm just going to put that out there as a bold prediction if that happens on Sunday. And maybe I'll be wrong. I'll be happy to be wrong. Maybe. But that will be the red flag for me personally.
Yeah. Make sure you keep an eye out on the Locked On Panthers YouTube page. If Alontae Taylor gets a sack, Julian might go live right then and there to do the post-game show. We'll see how it goes. All right, I'll give you my prediction for this game. I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna do the thing that I shouldn't do, which is I'm gonna drink the Kool-Aid a little bit on what Tyler Shough and the Saints have done over the course of the past few games. I'm taking the Saints to win this game. I think it's tight. I think that it's close. I think if the Saints win, they have to cover, because you're talking about them winning by at least 3 points probably in this situation, even if it's a last-second field goal. And so that's going to be my prediction for this matchup. Julian will give his final prediction over on Friday. And of course, we'll be breaking down the rest of this matchup on our shows, Locked On Panthers and Locked On Saints, on Friday as well. Make sure you come through for your favorite team, but then also come and get the opponent's perspective before the matchup by checking each of us out as well. You can find more over at Locked On Panthers with Julian Council, more with Locked On Saints with me, and we appreciate you very much, as always, for checking us out and being here with us. And we'll see you again here next time on either of our shows, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.